Go.
No Nation. Welcome into another episode, a very special episode of the Renegade Rundown with yours truly, George Georgitis, along with my beautiful co-host, as always, Jen Santee, aka at Jen Santee 1890. You can find her on X, you can find her as Jen Santee everywhere else, and of course, right here at the Renegade Report on YouTube. You can find me at Renegade Report 1 on X. But our special guest today, our man is here for happy hour again on a Friday, Doug Rohan, aka at Rohan Law PC on X. A good friend of ours, he's a man of his word. We were talking last Friday, and he said, I'm going to keep my ear to the ground. When something pops off, I'll be the first one to hear it. We can get into it. And here we are a week later. I actually talked to him Wednesday to confirm we were doing happy hour again this Friday. And I was like, I know there's not a ton. We just got that paperwork on Monday, but we'll do the show and hopefully something good will happen. And sure enough, bam, the hammer dropped. So really excited to have you here. Unfortunately, we have to start the conversation on a bit of a somber tone. So far, I haven't had any reports of any of my friends or family or loved ones over that area of losing any kind of life or anything like that, but a ton of damage in the Big Bend area of Florida as just a really bad thunderstorm cell blew across the state and the nation kind of this morning around 5, 6, 7 o'clock this morning and tore up, really did a lot of damage around Tallahasse, especially on campus. The circus tent was destroyed along with a section of that baseball fence. So just prayers out there to everybody in Tallahassee and surrounding areas, anybody affected by the thunderstorms or tornadoes this morning. And Jen and Doug, I'm sure if you guys have any words, I'll let you give the floor to you guys.
Ladies first.
Oh, well, I just hope everybody's good. I haven't seen any reports of anything like that, so I'm hoping that stays the same. I did see a lot of damage. I saw just a lot of things going on, and I know there are people without power. So just all thoughts and prayers out to everybody in that area. And hopefully everything can get cleaned up and turned back on very quickly. I know it'll get hot, so stay safe, stay cool, and just know that all of us are here for you. If you need us to DoorDash you something, just hit me up.
Yeah, my sister still lives in Tallahassee, and I have not been able to get in touch with her today. Hopefully that's just due to power outages and not something more serious, but we're waiting to hear back. And lots of people are spending their Friday afternoon in a way they didn't expect.
No doubt. We absolutely hope that your sister and her family and everybody's fine. And again, prayers out to everybody out there. Luckily, we have this kind of fun TV show, podcast, whatever you want to call it, happy hour here. So hopefully we can provide an escape for those of you all have found a charger, whether it be in your car and you got to, hook it up to the cigarette lighter, whatever the case may be. We appreciate you joining us. And again, our thoughts are out there. But boom, we have us a big week in news. I think it would be kind of best to start at the beginning because I'll be the first one to admit this thing has gotten to a level of back and forth and kind of litigary shenanigans that is a little bit over my head. And I don't even know if litigary is a word, but it is tonight. I just made it up. Monday, we finally get the order for the motion to stay being denied in the state of Florida. Pretty cool that we finally get it. Unfortunately, that just goes to show you how backlogged the system is and how far we may be from getting that amended complaint from Florida State. And I don't want to get there. There's a million things I want to dig into, but I know you probably have a good place to kind of start and get us level headed here at the beginning with that release that on Monday.
We got time to get into all of it today. We won't have to rush into it, but yes, the bottom line is that on May 8th, we finally got to see the order from an April 9th hearing. Now, yes, Judge Cooper is ruling from the bench, so he's telling us what his decision is going to be, but these orders are important because it substantiates his thought process and it substantiates his conclusion to address what we're seeing in North Carolina with the courts of appeal, with the Supreme Court. So a judge can issue his ruling, but then he has to issue the logic behind the ruling. And that's why this order was so important. They cited to a bunch of cases and other case law that Judge Cooper believes is in line with his thought process in this case. And so that way we've got an opportunity for us to finally read in concrete evidence, not his stream of consciousness talking from the bench, what the specific ruling is and what the specific thought process is on how we got there. So it took 30 days to get this order. Hopefully we're not waiting on 30 days to get his order on the April 22nd hearing. I think the second issue is much more simple because all he's saying is Florida State failed to meet their burden on the jurisdictional issue, and so they need to restate their complaint regarding those items. So I'm hoping that comes out next week. I don't think there should be such a delay. Once that order comes out, Florida State has 7 days, not including the calendar day, weekend days, to file their second amended complaint, which I do believe is going to be something exciting. I think there's going to be a lot of new information there, and so that's what I'm looking most forward to.
Man, you and me both, and Jen included, and I think everybody out there in Noel Nation can't wait to see whether, now that it's open and not just that one little sentence they're changing, let's see what they got. Let's see what they're bringing to bat. But, you know, all right, before I ask the first question, is there anything in here that kind of stuck out to you once you finally got to lay your eyes on the complete order? I know you noted a few things on X, but as far as when you got to see the actual language from the judge, did it, you know, improve your stance in any particular spots or just change any kind of thinking at all?
Yeah, the big thing is that I think for as much as Judge Cooper said, I didn't read the order from North Carolina before starting my hearing, I think he sure as heck wrote this brief and this order as though he's expecting Judge Bledsoe to read it. And so he was very direct on some of his points. First off, that one thing that I loved and the thing that I reacted to most was in pulling a dozen cases supporting his position that you can't engage in anticipatory filing to your benefit. He pulled a North Carolina Court of Appeals decision, which is his way of reaching into Judge Bledsoe's backyard and saying, look, even your courts don't agree with the way this behavior was laid out. So I thought that was very positive. I thought that was a very significant moment. And then he also threw some very direct haymakers at Judge Bledsoe saying, look, we are fighting over this jurisdictional issue. The problem is if you, Judge Bledsoe, believe that North Carolina has the appropriate sovereign immunity piercing law on your behalf, that is an issue that's going to go to the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court. So no matter what your decision is, if you keep this case, you are extending this litigation further because those are appellate issues. However, if we stay here in Florida, where Florida State admits that they are subject to suit under this sovereign immunity statute, then we don't have that appellate issue. So that's one less hurdle that the parties have to reach a final conclusion if we keep this case here in Florida. So Judge Cooper's being very direct and speaking directly to Judge Bledsoe on some of these issues.
Without a doubt. Did you have anything kind of on that before we move into bigger and brighter things?
No. I think, yeah, no, I got it from what, everything Doug's saying. So that makes sense.
Yeah, pretty easy to understand. Again, it's just kind of a reflection. We just finally got it in writing of what we knew, like Doug said, back on April 8th. But all of these things matter. None of these single rulings, none of them, they haven't been any grand slams. There's not any walk-offs or anything to that nature. But when you go into these, innings or whatever you want to call it, every win is kind of important. That's why we're so excited about the news we got today that we're about to get into. One thing that surprised me a bit and didn't really make sense to me, because the judge had a bit of reasoning to where he said, look, there's no reason to get into discovery because we don't even know what the deal is on motion to dismiss. So if we're going to dismiss it, there's no point in even having that conversation. So my response, and I think a lot of people out there's monkey brain goes, okay, well then why do we do the motion to stay first? Because if you're going to stay it, what does Like, why didn't you do the motion to dismiss first? Because what are you going to state if you're going to throw it out? So there's, I think with this very latest news that has came out, it goes to show exactly why. And I'm wondering if Florida State brings their amended lawsuit and we finally get our eyes on that, ACC gets their response, will they have an opportunity then to go back and get that motion to stay overturned in Florida due to the changing factors? They're kind of being in a similar situation or an inverted situation to what Florida State has in North Carolina.
Judge Cooper has literally shouted out, basically do-over. We are starting over from scratch. So that means Florida State files their second amended complaint, and the ACC has a right to respond just like they did to the first amended complaint. So they could file a new motion to dismiss. They could file a new motion to stay. They could go ahead and submit an answer if they wanted to, unlikely. And then we'll have a hearing. So if the lawsuit was filed December 22nd and it took until April 22nd to get the hearing heard and issue sorted out, you can presumably think it could take up to 4 months from whenever that do-over happens. So yes, we could be in September and still be in the exact same starting block formation, waiting for this to start going. And whoever loses that in September has the right to appeal it, which then puts it in the same situation that we are in with the North Carolina suit and the order that was issued today that we'll talk about in a moment. So that's why I was concluding earlier today that between these two lawsuits and between these two fights over jurisdiction, there is a world where the Clemson lawsuit actually takes over even though it was filed 60 days later, the Clemson suit could actually move more quickly and more expeditiously through the process, getting us to a point where the parties are pressured into going ahead and reaching a settlement.
And I promise, guys, we're getting there. Just wanted to let kind of people file in here before we got into the real good stuff. We're almost to 100 people, and this is YouTube only this time, not on X. But one more thing on that, that ruling you spoke about on April 8th, part of that was Judge Cooper ruled that you had within 120 days, you needed to begin mediation. With the latest things, did I hear wrong, or did I hear both sides kind of came back and ask for more time on that, or to get that date pushed back just due to the fact of the changing nature and how long it's been with the courts and stuff like that?
They did. Both parties issued a consent request to the judge to extend that deadline to July 1st. And some people have been trying to read into that date. It's the date when the SMU joins the conference. And so that's when it's going to change, because maybe something's going to happen on June 30th where we don't need to mediate. I don't know. I don't know that I buy that or believe that. But what it does indicate is that both parties know that there's a lot on the line. Both parties have to agree on who the mediator is going to be. You want the mediator to be somebody that's familiar with these issues. And this is an issue that doesn't come up very often. So it's going to be very hard for, first of all, them to find a mediator that's qualified. And then once they find a mediator that's qualified, one that has a reputation of being more middle of the road. The mediator can't determine who is right, who is wrong, what the amount is that they need to settle for. That's arbitration. That's when you have a mini informal hearing and the arbitrator says, this is who wins and this is how much they pay. A mediator has to have the respect of both parties, and then has to be able to lean into both parties by saying, look, you're not being reasonable. You're not considering this aspect. You need to come off of your position because this is a risk that you haven't appreciated. You might think to the ACC, they might say, you think this is ironclad. You think this is a $570 million case. And so you're trying to settle for the $400 to $500 million range. That's not reasonable. Then on the FSU side, look, you're going after them for an improper penalty. You're saying that this is inappropriate liquidated damages. You want it to be $20 million. That's not going to happen. So the mediator is there to lend their voice to the negotiating process, to the thought process of both parties. And so that's why it's hard to come up with somebody that they can use in this case.
That's a brilliant point. A ton of good points in there. But I think a lot of sports people who kind of just don't follow law that much, except for when it comes up in these circumstances, have heard about arbitrations with the NFL or the baseball unions and things, and pointing out that difference. I don't think I knew that until you said that. So great on you for giving that, and I really appreciate that. Chris Johnson, we have a brand new greenie in the house. We appreciate you for joining as a member today. Every one of those is huge for the channel and the metrics, and just helping us bring you new stuff and get new equipment. So yeah, big on you. We really appreciate that, Chris, so much. But I guess we can get to the good part. We'll let you drop the hammer. I've thought about how to kind of break this out and let people know, but we just talked about how the ACC's motion to stay was denied in the state of Florida. It was initially denied in North Carolina as well, but therein lies the development today, and a pretty damn big one in this race to a result. So what can we tell the folks today, Doug?
So about 9 o'clock this morning, right when the courts opened, we did get a copy of the signed Judge Bledsoe order, and he is agreeing with Florida State that basically we're throwing the entire North Carolina case on ice. The reasoning and the thought process is that Florida State has appealed the ruling against Florida State that the North Carolina courts have jurisdiction over Florida State, and they've appealed that to the North Carolina Supreme Court. And so as a result, as long as Florida State correctly follows the procedure, which doesn't always happen, but correctly follows the procedure and correctly appeals that decision, then Judge Bledsoe loses control of the case. It's an operation of law. Automatically, upon the proper filing of that request for an appeal, the case then falls into the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, not the Superior Court where Judge Bledsoe is. So he outlined the law and the reasoning for it, and admitted that Florida State has done everything that they are supposed to do. So while Judge Bledsoe can still get involved with some preliminary matters, some administrative matters, anything that helps the appellate process through the Supreme Court, other than that, Judge Bledsoe is basically locked out of the case. So now we have to wait for the entire process to go through the Supreme Court of North Carolina. And frankly, that's a process that's going to take months and not weeks.
Love to hear it. I guess I can go ahead and read exactly what the order is. Very short here, just 2 paragraphs. So before we move forward and really kind of dissect it, he says, his honorable Judge Bledsoe out of North Carolina, this matter is before the court sua sponte to address the court's jurisdiction over the above captioned case in light of defendant Board of Trustees of Florida State University recent appeal of a portion of the court's order entered on April 4th, 2024. Section 2, having considered parties' status reports, the arguments of counsel at the hearing on this issue, and other relevant evidence of record, the court hereby stays, and that's bold in like another size font, all proceedings in this action, including discovery, for the reasons set forth below. And it goes to label off some precedents and things like that. We can get into the rest of it later, but that is the main opening, kind of the idea of it there for folks. I know a lot of that stuff is Latin and we don't know exactly what's to it, but the fact that stay was bold and so huge was pretty big.
Yeah. And as we said, when this happened, when this was coming up last week, it was a win-win situation for Florida State. There is a desire to get the case done. I understand that. And obviously this pace is far slower than anybody wanted it to be. The litigation is not what's driving settlement and is not what's driving the parties to resolve this case. The February 2025 deadline with ESPN is what's going to dictate if and when this case can be settled in an expeditious manner. If they blow through that deadline, then yeah, absolutely, this could drag out for 2 or 3 more years. But I really believe that February 2025 has more to do with these parties reaching an agreement than anything that's happening in this litigation. So I understand the frustration. I understand that people are saying, we really are starting over, as one of the other, the Big Mountain, I think that's their name, the Big Mountain podcast was saying, it was like everybody wants them to have a race to the finish line, except it seems like the judges didn't get the memo. And it's true. This is moving at a glacial pace. Welcome to my world. This is how litigation goes. Nothing happens in the time frame that our clients want. Cases that should take a few months to resolve take years. It's very routine for the legal industry. The billable hour reigns supreme, and that's what the attorneys are fighting for.
I think that's the thing that's just ended. There was some thought, I don't think ever from you, but some thought from, kind of novices at this stuff like myself, that possibly some of this could get done. They could get somewhere, at least get to the discovery phase of this hearing to where they would force a settlement in a certain fashion. But no, it seems pretty clear that neither one of these things are going to get anywhere near done when you talk about the February and August dates that they would need to get done under. But speak to just the fact or how important is it for this state to come through in North Carolina to sandbag that damn thing, to give Florida State's case a chance to move forward and not just, because it would have been bad if North Carolina goes through. I think you've told us several times their ruling becomes a bit of a precedent and an issue for anything we're trying to do in Florida. So,
what we've talked about is the full faith and credit clause of the Constitution. What that means is that any decision in one state by a court must be respected by the other state. So if there was an opportunity for North Carolina to gain an advantage to finish the case more quickly, then whatever the decision is, whoever gets to a decision first, that decision has to be respected by the other state, so long as these two cases are going on effectively parallel tracks. Now, we're talking about the ultimate decision, the ultimate conclusion, through all the Court of Appeals, through all the additional motions and stuff. So we are 3 years away from a final judgment if we go through the court process. There's a 98% chance that this does not make it to a final decision in either of those courts. There's a 90% chance that we don't even get the first substantial rulings before we even get into the appellate process. So it is, again, consistent with what I've thought. August to December is about the time frame that I think in this football season, I think there will be a solution to this case. I don't know that we necessarily settle on August 16th. I think we at least announce our departure August 16th before we kick off in Ireland. But I'm hopeful that announcement comes with, by the way, we have an agreement as well.
That's definitely the big hope. And people
I think
we talked about it a lot. August 15th, that's your deadline if you want to be in the Big Ten by 2025. And go ahead, Jen.
Oh, I was going to say, I think that's exactly what happens. I think, yes, everything is slow moving right now, but I think this is just building up to force everybody to get into that sort of mediation, right, and make a deal. And I think Clemson's lawsuit moving forward quicker is actually good for Florida State. Honestly, I really think it is, because if you look at the new rules by the College Football Playoff Committee, I'm not going to get into this again, but I will do it for 2 seconds, that if you've had previous appearances in the college football playoff, you get more money. Clemson just became so much more valuable. They became so much more valuable. And if Clemson's lawsuit goes through first, this is going to be an issue, and they're all going to go to the table. And I did see a comment in there that says UNC is discussing staying in the ACC, and I have heard that as well. I really have. The UNC, yes.
Yep. That's a legacy property.
Yeah.
They can build a successful ACC off UNC as their flagship.
That's what
as
they
they
think.
should.
That's what they think. Good luck. Lots of luck with that is what I would say. I don't know that anybody puts on North Carolina football as their go-to. I don't know that the TiVo actually has, if anybody remembers TiVo, remember how TiVo would like tell you what you like, right? Like, yeah. It'd be like, boop, boop, it would like tell you what you like. I don't think anybody like would be suggested to like North Carolina football because nobody watches it, but that's fine. If that's what you want to go with, cool beans. We want out. Let us go. North Carolina, y'all continue to be the suckiest of sucks. That's what you're good at. Okay. And then just tear the conference down to the ground because that's what y'all have done. Enjoy.
They specialize in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no offense, and I get what everybody's saying. I really do. If North Carolina leaves, it tears down the ACC. But ESPN doesn't give a fuck about North Carolina.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Sorry. They lose Clemson and Florida State. Nobody gives a shit about North Carolina. This is about if ESPN, if they lose, I mean, that's fine. I mean, everybody can disagree with me. I get it. But if ESPN loses Florida State and Clemson from the ACC, what the hell are they going to do with North Carolina? They don't care about North Carolina. North Carolina brings them no money to ESPN. None. Zero. Zilch. Y'all don't believe me? Go see who watches the ACC network. Just go take a look at it. That'll tell you everything you need. Because again, I know this isn't a news flash. Nobody's watching women's lacrosse on Saturday mornings. Okay. Nobody's doing that. We're looking for football. That's what drives the numbers. But, maybe I'm wrong. Y'all go ahead. I'm being mean, apparently.
Boom. North Carolina is the latest victim. Jen pulls no punches. Yeah, there's no doubt. With Florida State and Clemson off the map, that's it. ESPN, there's going to be a whole new deal. Whatever they try to form up with North Carolina at the head would be its own thing. It'd be some kind of group of deal. So the fact that they are kind of welching and you're hearing things about them possibly continuing with the ACC, like Jen said, that's fine. Let them go and do it. I don't think it has too much effect. It would be great, and it would be a crippling blow to the ACC if they left, but they definitely aren't saving it by staying behind. I put my, anything I want to wager on that. And Jen, she mentioned a lot of things. She mentioned about the speed of the Clemson lawsuit. You mentioned at the very beginning that, hey, that thing is on a course. The way they were able to kind of see how things unfolded in Florida, didn't have to announce that thing. We're able to get in there the case a little bit quicker. I disagree with the people that think that's negative. I think it's positive. I think everything you can kind of learn off of Clemson's new approach. I'm not saying, I know anything about the new amendments coming or the new filings that Florida State has, but I feel pretty heavily that Clemson's response and everything that's moved forward to this point is going to influence those heavily, like we've seen Florida State's do in Clemson's case. So that I definitely agree. That's a positive to me. It's not a negative, and that would be just that much better for Florida State. As far as the hammer coming down, the ruling to stay granted for Florida State and the North Carolina court, the judge mentioned that he's pretty much sitting back to see what happens in the appeal. So what exactly does that mean? Can you break that down for us? Like, are we going to pick right up where we left off when they handle the one issue, whatever that issue is that they took up in the appeal, or is a large portion of the case getting looked at in the appeal? So for us laymen, what exactly does that mean?
That's a great question, and one that does deserve some explanation, and one that I haven't gotten into on any of the other shows. So once again, this is part of our effort to bring unique content every time we appear and every time we are getting together with you. The practical situation is that the Court of Appeals, the Superior Court, the Supreme Court of North Carolina has been asked by Florida State to evaluate Judge Bledsoe's ruling on the issue of jurisdiction. Does North Carolina have the legal right to pursue a case against Florida State? So that's a very limited and narrow issue. What will happen is North Carolina Supreme Court will either agree with Judge Bledsoe, which I believe is the 80% most likely scenario, or they will agree with Florida State that North Carolina does not have jurisdiction over Florida State. They will then issue a ruling, and that ruling will remand the case back to Judge Bledsoe with specific instructions, either follow-up questions, follow-up issues that need to be done. One version of their order could be, we agree that Florida State is not subject to the jurisdiction of North Carolina. Please take this case back from us, and when it gets to you, we're instructing you to dismiss this case. That's a scenario. What's more likely is that the case goes back to Judge Bledsoe with instructions. You are correct. This is a viable case in North Carolina. You are free to proceed. And that's when Florida State will then have to file an answer. That's when Florida State will start the discovery process. Depositions will get scheduled. And then, if that's the route we've gone on, the next step will be a motion for summary judgment. After discovery is complete, what Florida State will then say as the defendant is, look, we've done all the discovery, we've turned over all the rocks, we've laid out all of the details of what will be presented to a jury. And based on what evidence we've found, there is no scenario under which the ACC can prove its case. So much like the motion to dismiss pre-discovery, we now have a motion for summary judgment after discovery, and Judge Bledsoe will have another opportunity to say, this case moves to the jury phase, or, sorry, ACC, you don't have it. We're going to go ahead and dismiss this case because even now that we've done all the discovery, you can't prove your case.
So, beautiful explanation. I'm glad we got that out there for people to understand. Before we move into our calls and questions part of the show, and I've seen a lot of y'all's questions in the chat. I haven't been ignoring you guys, just trying to get the kind of baseline of knowledge and what's going on and what's new out there. So we're going to do that. But before that, we're going to run a bit of a commercial, I guess you would call it, for Doug Rohan and Rohan at Law. So you want to set it up exactly what you had going on here, and we'll run it?
Yeah, this past weekend we had the Taste of East Cobb, which is where a bunch of restaurants come out to the church parking lot. We had over 30 restaurants in attendance, and they create some little sample size of their menus so that the community can come out and check out all the restaurants, have lunch, have dinner. You know, a lot of communities like to do these types of events. So we set up a booth, had a chance to meet a lot of our friends and neighbors in the area. And then, of course, we were giving away a raffle, which is a 55-inch Samsung, to one of our lucky winners that registered with us. So this was me making a personal delivery to our winner on Monday afternoon.
There you go. And here she is. This is an awesome testimony.
We're here with Kristen, the winner of our 2024 Taste of East Cobb raffle. Brand new Samsung 55-inch TV. We're very excited. Happy for you, Kristen.
Thank you. I'm so very excited as well. This was such a sweet surprise. So unexpected. And Doug is kind enough to bring it to me by himself. First class service.
Hey. So glad that we could be a part of this. Thank you so much for participating. And if you didn't win, please follow along. We'll be giving out some other goodies again in the future. Your best friend on your worst day. It was great. It was unscripted. Yeah, it was unscripted. That happened totally by accident where we said the same thing. So I think I owe her a Coke now in addition to the TV. It was pretty funny.
Well, there you have it. So stay tuned. Make sure you follow him at Rohan Law PC on X and all the other different places so you can get involved. Maybe get some of those raffle entries and win you a prize. Or God forbid you're in Georgia and you have any issues, Doug can come to the rescue. Again, the bat line is open, 850-495-1906. If you have any questions for myself, Jen, or Doug concerning anything to do with the case or anything surrounding it, really, now's the time. Feel free. Don't be shy. We've got over 115 people in here, so get your call in and get your question in.
While we're waiting for those calls to come in, of course, like and subscribe. Am I doing this right? Is that what we're supposed to say?
Absolutely.
A couple other news tidbits to share. We will be having an Atlanta Twitter meetup on June 29th at Scofflaw Brewery. So if you're in the Atlanta area and you want to come hang out, 5 to 7-ish, and kind of in that time frame. I've had enough people reach out that wanted to meet personally and catch up and say hi. So June 29th at Scofflaw Brewery. That's where the Atlanta Seminole Club usually has their events. So we're going to go back and spend some money with them. It won't be probably the next 2 weeks because we've got my daughter's graduation and then Memorial Day after that. But I'll commit to being back in 3 weeks for sure. And then we're going to talk about some things that we're doing behind the scenes in case anybody is going to Ireland. We're going to have perhaps some details to share with how we're going to share our enthusiasm with certain media personalities who are going to be in attendance at the game in Ireland. So
awesome.
we're gonna be sharing some of those details. So tune back in 3 weeks. And
are y'all going to be teaching?
We'll
are y'all teaching potato throwing? Is that what we're doing?
No, vodka making, not potato throwing. It's vodka making. But no, we do have some surprises and some. We want to be organized, is how I'll put it. We want to be consistent and practiced in our approach to how we're going to handle the pregame festivities.
And there's the perfect way to say it as a politician or a lawyer. We've got it handled, but I can't wait to see what actually does unfold over there. And hopefully I can be part of the group that makes it over there. But I know Doug is going to hold it down for everybody should he get over there. But
I've got airfare, I've got hotel, I've got tickets. I'm set. I'm there. COVID is the only thing that'll stop me.
Absolutely. There's no doubt.
Good.
You'll be able to
I think you're going to be fine. I don't think Ireland has like weird stuff on COVID, do they? Or is that just like for you personally?
Can't have COVID if you don't test.
There you go. If you never saw it, was it there? I think we're to a point. I can't is that actually an issue traveling? That's like
no, I don't
this
think
point
it is.
Pretty nuts. No. If it was, so hopefully you'll be good on that front. But
I don't
again,
know. I'm so surprised traveling and knowing that you're not allowed to like walk around with booze everywhere. Because I live in Memphis, like you can walk around with booze. It's like right? It's weird. Like things are just different. I guess I'm like, wait, you can't walk down the street with a beer? Okay, that's odd.
Sucks to be cool. You live in the wrong town. You need to move to Memphis.
Yeah, I mean, Memphis apparently and New Orleans are like the only places that this is legal. So
it is unusual.
Yes, it is. I'm just used to it, you know? And so anywhere I go, I'm like, wait, I can't just like walk outside with this? That's
it isn't even America.
Like, what kind of freedoms y'all have? Why can I not drink my booze out in the street? What's going on? Anyway. Yeah.
It's always hilarious watching people from New Orleans, move away and they come just whipping them, whatever it is, beer, vodka. What are you doing, man? What do you mean? What am I doing? This is how we get down. But they will put you under the jail at Pensacola Beach. I promise you that.
Memphis and New Orleans have the same rules. If you are a passenger in a car, you're allowed to drink. You're allowed to drink in the car if you're a passenger in the car. If you're walking on the street, it's fair game. It's weird that we have the same laws. I wonder if it's like a Beale Street thing with a Bourbon Street thing. I don't know. But it's weird that like these are the only two cities apparently with these laws that you can just be a passenger in a car, golf cart, whatever. It's all good in the hood here, like we're fine.
Gotta love it. That's why America is America. You got pretty much anything as long as it's not too crazy. If you're into it, there's a place where that goes down. So shout out to
Nashville
and New Orleans.
Vegas, you cannot walk out on the Vegas Strip with booze, and Nashville is the same way. You have to drink in the casinos in Vegas and in the bars. And sorry, I was talking to the chat. My bad.
Oh, good. Guys, I don't know what the deal is. Like when I'm asking our questions and we're getting kind of the scripted part of the show away, y'all have like 1,000 questions that I could never get to as the chat's rolling by. Now everybody's tongue-tied. So I got plenty of questions. We talked about how big this stay was and just kind of, leveling the playing field, preventing them from getting too far out ahead and messing us up. What are the odds? Like, are they going to be able to pull the same move on us? Do you think there's a high chance of that? Like, Is it just so far out with both of these that it just doesn't really matter? Do you think there's a chance we either even get to discovery on either one of them at any point?
No.
That is the conclusion that I have reached, that we could be in September in Florida and be at the same place we are right now in North Carolina. It could take us that long to work through all those steps, and we will just be getting a Court of Appeals order for a hearing sometime in late September. The February 2025 date is the dictator in determining whether or not this gets resolved before or after ESPN announces.
Yeah, that February 2025 date. Has your feelings on that changed? Where exactly kind of are you on that? It's my opinion, that I just don't see any way that ESPN possibly moves forward. I think that their mind is pretty much made up. It's almost like they're giving the ACC this opportunity to kind of make something happen, but I don't see any situation where it goes forward and it's renewed.
I think you're exactly right, and nobody is asking me for my opinion, and shame on them, darn it.
We are, damn it. It's happy hour.
We
baby.
are.
Tell them exactly how you feel.
If the ACC could swallow their pride and look at the 20-year picture as opposed to the 2-year picture, they should get Florida State and Clemson to agree to a $180 million price tag, a $150 million price tag, take that $300 million that none of the other members can afford. So you ensure that the state, that whatever the price is, it's high enough that only Clemson and Florida State leave. You keep everybody else. You go out and get UConn, make yourself the basketball primary conference that you want to be. Stop screwing around with football because it's already a losing financial proposition. If you're not in the SEC and the Big Ten, you're not going to make money. Stop trying. So if the ACC pushes it, if the ACC is operating from a place of fear and their position is, we're going to keep spending money on attorney's fees, we just need a judge to tell us, what this number is going to be, what's going to happen, they legitimately run the risk of the number being 60 million or 80 million, because they're going to find that not just the grant of rights is invalidated, but those exit fees are a penalty and not a true reflection of the liquidated damages. So if you don't have liquidated damages, if those liquidated damages are $50 million, you've got 5 or 6 teams, there's 5 or 6 members that are going to be like, see you. There are some people that would, in that second and third tier, say, yeah, the Big 12 is a better opportunity. The Big 12 is more stable. We have proven that the ACC is, your word for today is feckless. Feckless is ineffective.
I like that word.
Mm-hmm.
I love feckless.
The ACC leadership has proven themselves unworthy of your time and attention. So go to the Big 12. Make the Big 12 the 4th best conference or 3rd best conference. That is a reality of a $30 or $50 million buyout that doesn't exist if they compromise at $150 million. So I think that's what the ACC should do. I think that puts Florida State and Clemson in different conferences for 2026. And then we have a big happy family as we do our farewell tour.
There you go. We're finally starting to get some questions rolling in here. Tony Voloshin says, Doug, what are the odds FSU declares they're leaving the ACC before the August 16th date or 15th date is what he meant. So he's really putting you on the spot. He wants odds. What do you think? What's the brass nuts of how you feel about it?
I would say a 5% chance that they announce before August 15th, on or before August 15th. The reason why is because right now we can't have an agreement with another conference. So if we were to try to play a 2025 schedule in another conference, we'd already need to know where our landing spot is. It's just too complicated to work out these schedules. Whereas if we give up one more year of this increased revenue that is palatable so long as we know that we're going somewhere else, we get to have a much more smooth and orderly transition. We get that 2026 home opener with Bama, and it's our first conference game at home in the new renovated stadium.
Boom. And he doesn't mince words here on the happy hour. He gives you straight how it is. We got another one. This is a really good one. I don't think I've even asked you or thought to ask you this about the Florida State side of things, but this is a really interesting one from Rob Ellen. We got a Clemson Tiger in the fan. We appreciate you. You're always welcome here. You can subscribe, do all that good stuff. We appreciate you. He says, Doug, what do you think the ACC is spending on attorneys? And what do you think their budget is for attorneys? And I would flip that and, double it and say, what do you think about FSU and everybody else? Like, what do you just overall think kind of money is being thrown in? I couldn't imagine, but you have a pretty good kind of inside idea of what these kind of things cost.
I can speculate. We were working through this exercise on a limited basis with Garnet and Old last night.
Allegedly.
I have worked in insurance defense firms. I have run my own plaintiff's firm for 10 years now. There is a financial component to what we do. So first you have to think about the fact that each team of attorneys has your rookie, novice, baby associate. That's the do boy that runs around and does everything. They're probably getting billed out at about $350 per hour. You have your partner that's probably closer to being billed out at $750 or maybe even $1,000 an hour, depending on the situation. I would suspect a typical attorney roughly bills 200 hours per month. And we have multiple clients. This isn't the only case they're working on. They have other cases, other clients, other hearings. But let's presume between the 7 attorneys that are working each side, we have an average of $500 per hour. And let's presume that they're budgeting about 100 hours per month. That's $50,000 per month that they're spending in this litigation. That's per team, per case. So you have 100 hours per month on FSU handling the Florida case, on FSU handling the North Carolina case, on the ACC handling the Florida case, on the ACC handling the North Carolina case, on Clemson handling the South Carolina case, and the ACC handling the South Carolina case, on Clemson handling the North Carolina case, on the ACC handling the North Carolina case. So the ACC is handling 6 lawsuits. No, it's 2, 4.
That's what I got, is 6.
Yeah, 6 cases. 2 in Florida. No, they've got 1 in Florida, 1 in North Carolina, 1 in South Carolina. But no, they have the defense. So yeah, it is, but there's 2 sides each. So yeah, it is 6. The ACC right now, before North Carolina gets involved, the ACC is handling 6 cases at what I anticipate being roughly $50,000 per case. 50,000 times 6. $300,000. Yeah.
I would think it would be like $300,000
per month. $300,000 per month.
And that's just
that
that's
makes
just
more sense.
Okay,
now I see what you're saying. Okay.
So again, that 500,000 figure, who knows? They may get there by the time you get into the rest of it. That's just the man hours.
300 makes more sense. That makes more sense. Yeah.
Per month. This case has already been going on for December, January, February, March, April. We're now into May.
No,
I would estimate the ACC has already spent $1.5 to $1.8 million in attorney's fees involved in. Well, no, because Clemson is 1.5. I would estimate the ACC has spent $1.5 million in attorney's fees, getting to the point where we're starting over from scratch.
Again, motion to stay granted in North Carolina. So we hit the sub-zero freeze on that thing. And hopefully we can get caught up a little bit in Florida. But as we talked about, all those deadlines are getting pushed back as well. So yeah, this thing is going to take a long time and cost a lot of money. Another interesting kind of tidbit here as we're only going to do an hour and 15 minutes total on the show. So we've
Before
got
that,
about 17 minutes left. I don't even know if Doug has that one.
if you have a high schooler, strongly encourage law school in your future endeavors. Job satisfaction rating is low, but there are ways that you can be happy while practicing law.
So many different ways, you know, and even if you don't, you could end up being whoever, a Bud Elliott, and, you know, go do your thing and do that and argue with me about recruiting rankings on the timeline. But Fatal Jedi has another kind of angle, one that I'm glad he brought up, because I wanted to ask you. We had to touch on this. Doug, what's the current and going forward situation with the Florida State attorney case? As that thing's been, I believe she filed a new motion we reported on a couple of weeks ago, and it's really starting to gain some heat, and she's not really letting it rest at all.
So let's add a seventh case to the ACC
There you go.
litigation costs that they are going through. I would have to admit I'm not as well versed on that process. What I do know is that it does fall in the federal system. If they are claiming that there's an issue there with the documentation not being provided, that goes through the federal courts. I don't know what the policy, what the procedure is, what the court procedures are. It's just another thorn in the side of the ACC. Whether it's effective or not, I don't know. I think that it's 60% politics and 40%, actual litigation. But it will be effective because it's another thing that the parties are having to go through.
Absolutely. Jags Jim says, how quickly do cases go through Florida appellate courts? I think I got a pretty good answer to this one.
Well, no, All Knowles, I think a couple weeks back on Twitter broke down what's the expedited process is: 20 days to file your appellate briefs, 30 days to schedule a hearing, another 30 days for the courts to render an opinion. The Court of Appeals process under certain circumstances is actually fairly expeditious. The problem with the North Carolina case is just don't know what their Supreme Court procedures are. But anytime you're in front of the Supreme Court, things take longer. There's no question about that. Their hearing schedule is much more limited. Their hearing schedule is much more deliberate. They've got to get an entire transcript of the original hearing prepared for both parties to see and then base their briefs on it. So again, we're talking months and not weeks for an ultimate decision. Even once they have their hearing, they don't render an opinion from the bench. So 30 days after the hearing, whenever that's scheduled for, an order will be issued. November is a reasonable time frame for both of these cases to come out of the appellate process.
What are the odds? Clear of our date, but sure enough, I take solace in the fact that the North Carolina case isn't going to be able to do something between here and there, to change anything or hurt, whatever reason, force FSU to settle in a less favorable situation. So I'm pumped.
That's why today was a big deal. That's why today was a big win, because we don't know what's going to happen, and it's certainly not moving at the pace we want, but we know we're not going to get screwed by the North Carolina courts.
We ain't bending over Bob for nobody, baby. Sorry about it. That court ain't gonna get us.
No, and
Jim
I think with.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just gonna say, and I think also with the reports of Florida State raising money and doing all these things, I think this is also. I mean, everybody knows what news dumps mean. Everybody knows what planting stories mean, and when those stories come out, that means. If Florida State can't get the ruling they want by the time they want to get out, they've raised the money. They're getting out either one way or the other, and the ACC can either be happy about it or not. And if Florida State gets out, Clemson gets out, that money is gone from ESPN. And if Clemson and Florida State have both promised that no matter what, they're getting out, that contract is gone. That puts the clock on ESPN to get rid of it, So I think ESPN knows it, the ACC knows it, and I think at some point ESPN is going to look at the ACC and say, let's get this fucking done now before we look bad, you look bad, and we're all just outside of this because, you know, Florida State, I don't know who planted the story. I'm not accusing anybody of planting a story. I don't know if it's true or not true, but there was a story that said Florida State's raising that $350 million right now. That's what they're doing. So you can either understand it, and if again, if Florida State leaves, ESPN, I fully believe if Florida State leaves before Clemson, I still think the deal gets done. I still think the ESPN punts that deal and says no, because they know Clemson's the next one. But if Florida State and Clemson raise that money, if the ACC wants to sit on their hands and say, we're not doing shit, right? If they do that and Florida State and Clemson raise that money, that deal is gone. And that's the only money the ACC is getting. That's all you got. That's all you got.
That leads us to another point that, you know, she talks about that money. There's $572 million worth of bonds set aside. They came out and like reasserted, okay, we're signing off. We're going to sell these. I don't want to lie. It's somewhere in the 300 million range to cover the football only facility and another project taken care of. So there is speculation out there. I wonder if that other 172 or whatever it is bookmarked for that. So I'm not here to say it is or it isn't. But I was talking about that in a tweet the other day, and everybody made it say that it seemed like I was trying to say that the 372 is going to that, and it was the whole thing. But anyways, no, there is 172 million left in that project Osceola with those bonds. That there's nothing reported. It's just a thought. What could that money be allocated for? It hasn't been publicized yet. What I was going to say earlier was that Jen may have to verify because she's way more up on the chat than me. I think it's 1-0. FSU's down in the 8th inning of the baseball game. So hopefully we bring our good luck back and they can pull that thing off in the 9th inning.
Got my ACC tournament T-shirt underneath for good luck. ACC
for the women. The women, they moved on to the quarterfinals, correct?
Yep.
They're not playing now, are they?
No.
Okay, they play this weekend.
They wouldn't have a 1-0 game in the 8th inning if they were playing.
That makes sense. That game would be over with. Brian Beers comes up with a comment as I'm laughing. It's not really funny, but over 200 buildings damaged, 80 homes uninhabitable, 135 mile per hour winds, 2.5 miles from my home. FSU class of 75. So again, prayers to everybody without power, the 80 uninhabitable homes, the damaged buildings, all that stuff. But the reports we haven't heard about is injuries or deaths. So let's just hope that continues, and prayers for everybody out there. Thank you so much for the questions. You guys came in the clutch there at the last. We've only got about another 9-10 minutes, and then we're going to jump off. You can follow us. Go jump on at Spear Addicts. They're starting right after us. Got a kind of double header. Sure, they were watching this. They're going to break down everything they heard here and all of their inside sources and really go into the ACC case, I believe, is what they're going to be concentrating on again. So, yeah, you have about 10 minutes. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Nobody's called in yet. We've got a ton of text questions. Now's your time. If you got a question, get it out there for Doug. And also, Doug, Jen, anything, if there's anything that we haven't got to, boom, let's get it out there. I don't want to hold you guys back.
No, I think you've done a great job of getting through the questions and getting through the details. I haven't dug into the Clemson case as much, so I'm not really sure where they are specifically on what's going on. I do know that I've said on a couple other shows, I think until I see the ESPN agreement, I'm not ready to latch on to the Clemson argument in full, but I thank them for pointing out that the grant of rights is specifically and only for ESPN. And so the easiest way for Florida State to get out of all this is if ESPN does not re-up their contract, which why would they unless it's part of a global negotiation? The bigger deal is I'm sure that ESPN and the ACC have already had talks. And I'm sure the ACC already knows where ESPN is leaning right now. And hopefully that provides some motivation for the ACC to be somewhat reasonable in their determination as to what happens next.
So we got a couple quick questions before we get off here. Doug, Could all the ACC be free and clear by 2027 if ESPN doesn't pick up the extension? I don't think Doug even has to do that. I think that's
That's
pretty much
that's
known.
exactly what we just said, Tony.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's taken care of.
there is no grant of rights without the ESPN agreement. The ACC grant of rights was patterned after the Big 12 grant of rights. The Big 12 grant of rights says Fox or ESPN, and then throughout their agreement, they say Fox or ESPN are our telecast partners. So generically, we go down the path of telecast partners. Telecast partners could represent Apple TV, could represent YouTube TV. At least there's a reason to argue that there is a validity in the Big 12 grant of rights after Fox and ESPN. And the ACC grant of rights, they just changed it to ESPN, only ESPN, for the benefit of ESPN, to fulfill the ESPN contracts. Without the ESPN agreement, there is no grant of rights.
Beautiful answer there again. Jags Jim says, does FSU currently have unfettered access to ESPN agreement as long as they're viewed in North Carolina? So I'm not sure exactly unfettered, but like, is that it over? Can they even go look at it in the case now that the judges or the court cases are going on?
No, the agreement from before the case is still in place. And truthfully, this is one thing that's been underreported. Maybe we're sharing another new first thought here on your crew, on your show, that we haven't really delved into. We still don't have the notes from the January 12th vote that was taking place to authorize this litigation. There is
what ties in with
there is a version of the events. This is Schrodinger's cat. We haven't opened the box yet. There is a scenario wherein Florida State is already a suspended member of the ACC. If Florida State is a suspended member, which should come to a head next week in the Amelia Island meetings for the conference summer talks, we will get a lot of information that comes out there. And I'm so sorry that Jen is missing all this while she's reading the context or text messages.
No, I'm listening. I'm listening.
This is going to be fascinating to see. Does Florida State still have privileges within the ACC? If so, then yes, they should still be able to review the agreement. It's not unfettered access. They have to make an appointment. They get supervised while they're there, not allowed to take notes, not allowed to take pictures. They can sit down at a table, open it up, and read it. So for those of you who are interested in suits, I love what Mike can do, and he can read something, and he has what's called eidetic memory.
I had that
memory just allows you to remember all the details. That would make life so much easier. Very few people possess that talent, although it is real. I have one of my college best friends that is blessed with that skill, and it's pretty impressive.
That reminded me of the big part of the Clemson lawsuit. Something you just touched on there, the ESPN agreement. They got it. They got it ordered. Mm-hmm. They got to have a copy. They're going to get a copy to leave through. And the ESPN kind of intimated to the judge in FSU in open court, like, yeah, we'll give it to you. But to my knowledge, they never did give it to us. And kind of what they were wanting FSU to do to get at FSU is like, yeah, they say that shit, but it's going to be redacted to all hell. But from what I understand, Clemson gets a fully unredacted version of that.
So this is a very technical issue, and this is where the sunshine laws are actually hurting us right now. The reason why that came up, and I was at the North Carolina Mecklenburg hearing when this became an issue with Judge Bledsoe, ESPN is okay giving the parties their own copy of the ESPN agreement. What ESPN doesn't want is for the public version to be the unredacted version. Well, the sunshine laws prohibit the FSU attorneys from agreeing to those terms. So in South Carolina, there's no prohibition. South Carolina attorney or Clemson attorneys are like, yeah, that sounds great. So that's why they're getting the agreement now. What Florida State attorneys can't say but are saying is, Judge, we need you to order that there is a redacted copy that's made public, that we get the full copy. Once Judge Bledsoe orders that, once Judge Cooper gets to that point in the lawsuit where he can order that, then Florida State will get that same agreement.
Final question for me. along that same exact lines, when I was reading through the Clemson suit and all the reporting on it, it seems to me that Clemson alleges once they get that thing and the reading of all the agreements in question, they're allowed to disclose it to FSU, amongst, or was it just their board of trustees and the people within? And that's where the question lies. From what it stood, it said conference members, yada, yada, yada. It listed all this whole things of people they could disclose it to without making it public. As long as the ESPN agreement wasn't made public, it could be, discussed in plans to go forward. Are we going to do this? Or are we going to do that?
That is correct. But there's a conflict
the ESPN
with the
agreement
sunshine
is
laws.
The good one. Yeah.
Right.
The ESPN agreement is the one everybody wants to see, which they can't. Like, nobody gives a fuck about what the ACC says. We want to see the ESPN agreement with the ACC. And that's the one that's being,
The reason why this is important is, according to Clemson, I haven't seen it. I can't speak to the truth of this statement. But I can see the logic behind the argument. What they're saying is the ACC was like, we need to have unrevocable rights so that we can partner with ESPN, so that we can have until 2036 the opportunity in your grant of rights to negotiate on your behalf. Okay, so ACC was taking from Florida State and all its members something of value. You then have the ESPN media agreement with the ACC. Well, ESPN and ACC are in a less stressful relationship. So I can see a version of the contract, of the language that says, yeah, we don't care what the members do. Members can come and go as they wish. We're not locking the members in, we're locking the ACC. And ACC is beholden to ESPN. ACC can't go to other Fox or Apple or YouTube. Well, if that's what the language says, which is what I'm waiting to see, then Clemson is correct. If the ACC is bound by the ESPN agreement, and the ESPN agreement says the members can do what they want, then the members can do what they want.
Facts. I love it. So that was my last question. Jen, if you have anything, final questions to close us off, we will hit the bricks. Come on. I know you got something for Doug before we go.
Well, to Nick Schneider's point, yes, it's unethical to buy beers for your judge in Ireland after he paid for his airfare.
Come on, man.
Inappropriate.
Well, there you heard it. He'll have to get over there on his own, but if you see him at the bar, you're in the clear. Buy him as many beers as you want. But I'm sorry, Jen. What was that?
Nothing.
Do you have anything?
No. I said I'm good.
All right.
Well,
I reckon we will call it a day. We really appreciate everybody. This was an amazing episode. We're going to wrap it up. Spear Addicts is getting fired up over there, so y'all go jump in with them and James after y'all get done watching ours. And we will see you guys Sunday. And, of course, after Sunday comes Monday. Don't forget to check out the Renegade Roast featuring Jen Santee and Tiny Hat Gang, our friend Ken. So episode number 2 is coming up Monday, 9:30 Eastern, somewhere around there. And we've got all kind of fun stuff planned there. Thank you again, Doug, for joining us again.
My pleasure.
Coming and educating the masses.
Y'all have a great weekend. Take care.
Absolutely. And prayers out there for everybody again.
I did hear from my sister. She did respond while we were on air. She's safe.
Oh, that's
no
wonderful
problem.
news. I love that. Thank you for letting me know. I was actually going to hit you up in like an hour and ask. So
she's good. She's all good.
We can always tell. And I saw somebody in the chat also said that Crestview got hit really hard, and that's a lot closer to me. That's only like 30, 40 miles east of my house. So prayers up everybody in Crestview and over here in the Panhandle, as opposed to the Big Bend that we've already shouted out. So for everybody in Florida, across the country, we love you. Go Noles, and we will see you Sunday.
First off, fuck Bama in the road tide. Fuck Tuscaloosa in every city that's close by. Bitch ass hillbilly redneck fans. Auburn almost caught y'all slacking like dress pants. Michigan trash, they ain't got a damn chance. Only Wolverine I respect is X-Man. Sheen ass coach got exposed, still in play.